My name is Shriver Hasbrook, and I am a member of the training and support team here at Hawks Learning. And our presenter today is Tim Roberts. Tim returned to teaching in 2015 after spending 25 years in technical communication and instructional media production for such companies as Humana, KFC, Atlas IED, Comdata Corp, GE Appliances, Churchill Downs, Inc., and Little Brownie Bakers. He is currently a senior lecturer of English at the University of Louisville, go Cardinals, where he teaches first-year writing courses along with business writing and technical writing. We will have live Q&A session after the presentation, so feel free to use the Q&A box at the bottom of the Zoom screen to submit your questions throughout the presentation. And on that note, I will go ahead and hand it over to Tim. Oh, can't hear you, Tim.
Maybe if I turn my microphone on, that would help.
Good to go now.
All right. Do you have the right title of the? This is what a technical writer can teach you about assignment design.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
Tips. My apologies.
Okay. All right. But I hope everybody else is in the right room. So, but if not, you're going to have fun with what you'll see. So, hi everybody. My name is Tim Roberts. I'm senior lecturer at the University of Louisville, and I want to welcome you to my presentation. And let me go ahead and get the show started here. Come on, Zoom. There we go. Okay, and there we are. What a technical writer can teach you about assignment design. So let's jump right in. And if PowerPoint will cooperate, here we go. By the end of this presentation, we'll be able to apply the technical writing concepts of purpose, task, result, and scan, read, and remember so that your assignments can be clearer for students and improve their chances for success. And to get there, we're going to first define what technical writing is, and we're going to use the definition provided by the Society for Technical Communication. We're going to see how determining an assignment's purpose, task, and the results can help develop its content, and how using scan, read, and remember, SRR, can improve assignment's visual layout. These are two things that technical writers do when they break down what, before they write. They determine the content first, and they also factor in scan, read, and remember how this information can be laid out. And I don't know if we're going to have time for this, but normally in a presentation, we can apply PTR and SRR to improve an assignment that's already been provided. But again, I'm not sure we're going to have time for that, but let's go ahead and jump right in. Here about me, this was, I was originally a part-time lecturer at the University of Louisville from 1986 through 1989. And this was back when I was an intellectual, because you could tell I'm an intellectual because of my turtleneck. And this was back when I won, I got third place in the regional John Oates mustache lookalike competition. So yeah, I did not look very happy in that picture. So let's go on. But from 1991 till, well, actually, I'm still involved a little bit. I was a technical writer and instructional media developer for these and many other companies. Some of them you might be familiar with, and some of them were mentioned in the introduction. Just as a note for this place right here, Atlas IED, that's where I met my wife. We were co-workers before we got married. So that's that IED is it's one of my significant employers. But you see a few of these as well. I guess you're familiar with this here, the chicken people and the appliance people as well. So these and a few other smaller companies, and worked for, did some freelance work for some even smaller organizations. So no room for all of them on here, but these are some of the big names that I'd worked for over 25 years. So right now I am a senior lecturer and dual credit instructor of English for the University of Louisville. And I also teach as an adjunct for Bellarmine University here in Louisville. And for a couple of summers, and this is significant in my own teaching development, I was a student services fellow and an instructor for the cadre and faculty development course during the summers of 2016 and 2017. That was a partnership between U of L and U.S. Army Cadet Command down at Fort Knox. This is where we had an 8-week intensive session where we taught new ROTC instructors how to teach. And one summer, I was an instructor of learning strategies. Was teaching them how to integrate a video and produce videos for their classrooms. The second year, I was student services fellow. I worked in the writing center that we had set up for the soldiers. And I also did media production for them. I took all their pictures and made a fine video at the end. So this was important to me because I think this made me become a lot more intentional in my own design of individual lessons, and also for an entire course as well. And that's where my whole interest in course development and assignment development started. But what sort of actually just kind of solidified this for me is that last semester, toward the end of the spring semester, I was a written communication assessor for the 2021 Cardinal Core evaluations. This is every 2 years, we assess how we're doing with student learning outcomes. And for us, our student learning outcomes are called the Cardinal Core principles. And we assess for written communication, critical thinking, oral communication, and there's one other, I don't remember what it is right now. But we're usually, those of us who evaluate the written communication, the essays from classes, we usually evaluate essays from 12 courses and 3 to 5 essays in each. These instructors are selected randomly, and the students are selected randomly. So they say, send an essay from these students that you for your class, and that's what we're going to use as a basis for evaluation to see if you are see if the instructors are on the beam for the Cardinal Core principles. But one thing that I was noticing is that the more complicated the assignments were, and we scored these on a rubric. The rubric we use is from the American Association of Colleges and Universities, the value rubric. I have a hard time saying that. The value rubric, the valid assessment of learning for undergraduate education. That's the rubric we use. It's a standard rubric. And one thing I was noticing is that, as I said, the more complicated the assignments were, the lower the rubric scores were on the student essays. And let me clarify something. By complicated, I don't mean that they weren't challenging. That means that they were not explained clearly or had way, way, way too many moving parts. There was an assignment that had 4 phases in it, and they were explained in about 3 pages, and I wasn't sure what phase of this whole project that I was evaluating for. Was this the final draft? Was this an intermediate draft? Also, there were some assignments that said if you were going to use this essay that we read in class, then you need to answer questions 3, 4, and 5 over here in this part, and you get the idea. The more complicated, the more moving parts there were, the lower the scores were on the rubric, and that was consistent. And I brought it up to the provost's office for the university, and was told, "This okay, well, that's a good thing to notice. Thank you very much." So I thought, maybe we could do something about this. So here's my possible solution. I'm integrating what I know from 25 years in technical communication and applying it to assignment design. What we need to do is design assignments so that they have a purpose, specific tasks, and that they describe results, which is what technical writers do when they explain something, when they write user guides or job aids, the stuff that customers are going to use in order, the customers are going to use in order to complete a task. Visually structure these assignments so that students can clearly read and understand the requirements. There's not, if you do this, then look at this. If you do these things, then be sure you incorporate these aspects in your essay. And it avoids the whole moving parts thing. And you combine the both to minimize misunderstanding and ensure student success. Now, there's no way you can eliminate misunderstanding completely. This is just so that you can minimize misunderstanding, and that the questions you get aren't ones along the lines of, "I don't know what you want me to do." because that can be frustrating. That's frustrating for the students, and it can also be frustrating for us. We might think that we're geniuses with these assignments, but if students don't understand them and they can't complete them, we have no way to fairly evaluate them. And also, we don't ensure that they're going to succeed. So we combine both of these to minimize the misunderstandings and ensure that they succeed. Okay, so can I open this up for chat right now, or anybody can chime in if they want, or does anybody have an idea of what they think technical writing is? Can we open up the chat just for a second?
Yeah, I just opened the chat, so people should be able to.
Okay, anybody want to chime in and just what do they think technical writing is? I've got the chat open. What's your definition of technical writing? I say technical writing. What do you say? Anybody want to respond? Hawks Learning will give 25 cents to anyone who responds. No, I can't promise that. So writing clearly and efficiently. Oh, yes, that's a big part of it. That's a big part of, and that's a big part of creating these assignments too. Yes. Professional writing in technical fields and for technical purposes. Translation of technical. Wow. Okay. Very clear list of objectives, bullet points. Of course, that's all used. That's all used. Focuses on specific elements for professional assignments. Okay. Yeah, all of these. Anybody else? Okay. This is translations of technical information in language that can be understood by insiders and outsiders. That is excellent. That is actually close to the definition that we're going to provide right now. This comes from, let me go back to the presentation here. This comes from the Society for Technical Communication. That's a professional organization of anybody who is directly or even indirectly involved in technical communication. That's not just writers, but anyone who does technical illustration, anyone who takes photographs of technical subjects, editors, and it could be editors for technical manuals or even editors for textbooks. Anybody involved in technical communication. I am a past president of the local chapter, which no longer exists. It was that the charter was pulled several years ago because, well, there's nobody. The membership just vanished. So what they say is technical communication is a broad field, very broad field, and includes any form of communication that exhibits one or more of these following characteristics. Okay. I hate to be read from the screen guy, but I'm going to have to be read from the screen guy here. Communicating about technical or specialized topics, such as computer applications, medical procedures, or environmental regulations, just like that one entry in the chat stated. Communicating by using technology, such as web pages, help files, or social media sites. And this third one, though, is the one that I want us to focus on, and that is providing instructions about how to do something, regardless of how technical the task is, or even if technology is used to create or distribute that communication. As we could tell our students that we want them to build us a flying saucer, and as long as the instructions are clear enough, they could do that for us. They can succeed and they can give us good results. But if we make things overtly or unnecessarily rather complicated, then that gets in the way of their own understanding of the assignment and their own success. So how to do something regardless of how technical the task is. So, and this is what I like to add as well. The value that technical communicators deliver is twofold. They make the information more usable and accessible to those that need the information, like our students. And in doing so, they advance the goals of the companies or organizations that employ them. And I think this is a question for us to consider. What are the goals that we advance to for our universities as educators? You see, if we have clearer assignments, we advance the goals for our learning objectives. We advance the goals for the course. We advance the goals for the department. And we advance the goals for whatever units we teach in, whether it's engineering, whether it's the sciences, whether it's arts and science or arts, humanities, whatever. I think if we try this again. If we make our assignments usable, accessible, and successful for the students, we can advance the goals of our university, of our departments, of our classes, our departments, and of the entire university. And I also want to emphasize this word value, because assignments need to be valuable, not just for us or not just to advance the goals of our class or our department, but they also need to be valuable to the students. Now, one thing that technical writing is not, and that is dumbing things down. When I pitched this idea to a couple of my colleagues, and in the discussions, both of them said, well, you can only dumb things down for the students so much. And I just thought, wait a minute, wait, because whenever, in some instances, and I didn't experience this, not just myself, but my colleagues, some of my technical writing colleagues did as well. You get thrown a pile of papers from some engineer or some project manager and say, here, dumb this down for our client service representatives. And that's really insulting. That's not just, let me introduce you to somebody who might explain this a little better. This man is George Lois. This is an older picture of him. Now, George Lois is probably not a familiar name to you, but if you're in advertising, he is considered to be he is a legend in advertising. For example, he designed several of the more striking covers of Esquire back in the 60s and early 70s. He's an art director, creative director, had his own agency. And he's known for that and a few other ad campaigns. But some of you might be of a certain age that probably know his most famous advertising campaign. And what was that? About 40 years ago, this upstart cable channel, believe it or not, even though it eventually changed an entire industry, not just broadcasting, but an entire industry, was having a hard time finding an audience. If we can open up the chat, anybody have an idea of what upstart cable channel this might be? Fox? Not Fox, no. As a matter of fact, this cable channel just celebrated its 40th anniversary 2 months ago. It's not Fox. ESPN? No. TBS? No. HBO? No. 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 CBS is older than that. Not CNN. CNN. Close. It was, are you ready for this? MTV. He was the one behind the advertising campaign of I Want My MTV, because at first MTV had a hard time finding an audience. It was in some of the bigger and some of the medium markets, but some of the smaller markets, and this was back in the days when a lot of the cable systems were locally operated. So his whole ad campaign, some of you will probably remember, what you were supposed to do, you're supposed to call your local cable operator and say, I want my MTV. He was the one behind this. And it was wildly successful. That's after about a year or so, MTV really took off and became a household name. Some of you, I don't know what the age range here is, but some of you probably either remember coming home after middle school or after high school and plopping down in front of the TV and watching music videos for hours. So, got somebody in the chat here. So, some people, too young to remember that. Okay, well, if if you don't remember it, chances are your parents probably do. But I'm not gonna, we're not gonna dwell on this too much. But anyway, that's George Lois. He's an expert. He's an expert on communicating to an audience. So let's see what else. Okay, some people. Okay, Abigail remembers. Yeah. Okay, but one thing that George said is that if you think people are dumb, you'll spend a lifetime doing dumb work. If you think that, and I don't think we believe our students are dumb, but we sometimes might even wonder that. But you shouldn't even entertain those thoughts. Because if you keep thinking that, then you're not going to design anything that will help them succeed or anything that's going to be worth their while in doing. So this is just a shorter way of saying respect the subject and the audience. Know your subject well enough, and also know your audience, know your students well enough. Respect them both. And here's another perspective on this. Dr. Heather Holloman, who's with the Department of English at Pennsylvania State, says the secret to being a great professor is love of subject and love of student. Love and knowledge of your subject so much that you are so excited to communicate it to your students. And this also comes from Parker Palmer in his book, The Courage to Teach. Good subjects that you love to teach, subjects that you're passionate to teach. They introduce students to a world larger than their own and their own experiences and egos, and a world that expands their personal boundaries and enlarges their sense of community. Yeah, Parker, we got some fans of Parker Palmer out in our audience today. And this is something, as a technical writer, that I can tell you, there were a number of times when I loved what I was writing about. It was something that might have been brand new to me, and I wanted to communicate that excitement to my end users or my audience. And I would think, okay, well, how can I really explain this to them so that they'll understand it and they'll actually be engaged with the subject matter? One of the best, one of my favorite assignments was the one with KFC, and I was just deeply. It was a short-term assignment, but I learned so much about how fried chicken was made. And no, I do not know what the 11 secret herbs and spices are. Sorry. But I loved what I was doing, and I was just thinking of ways that the people who would eventually use this material, what would help them understand it more. Would they enjoy using this material? Would they look forward to using this material instead of just having something sit on a shelf somewhere or a poster tacked up on a wall? So I think that that love of the subject matter and love of the student, that's something that can truly help you design and develop more effective assignments. So what are some of the benefits of having good assignment design? Well, for one thing, it makes the assignments significant for the class, but also significant in your students' lives. We're going to talk about that in just a couple of minutes. Now, it also better aligns with department and college student learning outcomes, SLOs. In our case at U of L, we call that the cardinal core principles. It increases motivation to learn, because without that motivation, students just have absolutely no idea why they're doing what they're doing, and then they just lose interest. It emphasizes the value of the assignment to the student, which of course goes back here to making the assignment significant. And it also goes back to minimizing misunderstanding. We can't eliminate misunderstanding completely, but it minimizes it. And you'll probably get better questions about the assignment itself, what is expected, and how the student can succeed in completing it. Now let's talk about the significant learning experiences. This is an idea I incorporate from L.D. Fink's Creating Significant Learning Experiences. And this is another one of the books that I picked up that just really changed the way I think about my teaching. Significant assignments have these qualities. They are engaging, of course. Just like good technical writing engages the audience, good assignment design engages the students. It makes them want to know more, engages them, makes them actually want to do the assignment. It results in a lasting change. Wow, that's pretty big for an assignment that's just a little reflective essay on something. But the more they think about what they learn, that can result in a lasting change for them. And it also has value in life, 3 to 5 years after graduation, not just 3 to 5 years in college, but 3 to 5 years afterward. We could have another presentation, completely different presentation on Fink's significant learning experiences. But this is, if your assignments are well designed, you should incorporate these ideas of its significance, that it's engaging to the students, it's going to result in a lasting change, and it's going to have value for them later on. And that's the toughest one of these. And I can sometimes lock myself up on how can I make this assignment relevant to them and how are they going to use it in 3 to 5 years. That gets to be the toughest part of creating a good assignment. So let's go ahead. So we see the what the benefits of good design are. Now let's actually get into making these assignments, designing them. So this is where my technical communication hat comes in. We're going to talk about two acronyms, PTR and SRR. PTR, purpose, tasks, result, or results, if there's more than one, and scan, read, and remember, PTR and SRR. Purpose, task, and result, the PTR portion, this is where we make decisions about the content. What's going to go in this assignment? What do we want the students to accomplish? And what will it look like? Scan, read, and remember, this deals with the presentation. Instead of just typing out an assignment in 2 paragraphs, how can we organize it so that it uses things like headings, subheadings, bullet points, which is something that somebody brought up in the chat about technical writing, that organizes things so that it's delineated into bullet points so that they can read the assignment, and if not remember it exactly, that they can if they can't remember it exactly, that they can go back and they can find what they need to know in order to remember. So PTR, this is where we make our decisions about content. SRR, the layout and the presentation. Is everybody good so far? Open up the chat. Anybody have questions? We moving along at a good pace? Am I going too fast, going too slow? Everything running okay? All right. All right. Thank you, Abigail. So far, so good. Just right. Okay. This is the Goldilocks version of the presentation. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Well, I'm going to keep on trucking right now. Let's talk about PTR. All right. So PTR, the purpose, how the assignment connects with the unit's learning goals. And now we're getting into the actual course itself, how the assignment connects with a particular unit's learning goals. The tasks, a short, concise list of what the students are to do to successfully complete the assignment. And the results, what the student is to produce. And samples are encouraged if possible. Whenever I teach students how to write an annotated bibliography, which itself is really intimidating. I've got samples, good samples from previous students from previous classes. And of course, I ask those students if it's okay if I use them as models, and they say, sure, go ahead. So I use those models to show what an annotated bibliography should look like. And that's the results that, that I provide for them just for that one assignment. So purpose, tasks, results, how the assignment connects with the unit's learning goals, a short, concise list of what students are to do to successfully complete the assignment, and result, what the student is to produce. Okay, so let's go on with purpose. Now, how does the assignment connect with the unit's learning goals? And here's a very sketchy illustration of how that would look. You have each unit, you have your class broken down into units, and you've got the lessons that lessons for the unit. That all of those connect to the purpose. Everything connects with the purpose. So, and the purpose answers that question. Well, why are we doing this? Which connects to their motivation. And of course, if they don't have motivation, they won't know why they're doing this. They won't know why, and they'll start questioning, why am I even learning this? And why am I even in college? It's surprising. It happens. That does happen. So if you have a clearly defined purpose for the assignment, it answers that question. Why are we doing this? Okay, tasks. Now, this is where you come up with a concise list of steps for students to follow so that they can successfully complete the assignment. Doesn't matter if it's 3 steps or 10 steps. They have to be concise so that the students can follow them to complete the assignment. Now, here's a pro tip. This is one of Tim's pro tips. If you are providing steps, do this, 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 and this, use numbers, not bullet points. If it's a sequential list, do this first, do this next, then do this next. Use numbers. Use bullet points only if the items are not in sequence. This is something I learned as a technical writer. The moment you put numbers next to something, think that they're supposed to follow those as steps, even though it might just be a list of things that will display for them if they on their screen if they're doing a task like that. So just remember that. Use bullet points only if the items are not in sequence. Don't use numbers for that because numbers can confuse your audience. But if they are sequential steps, do this first, do this second, do this third, and so on. Use numbers. Don't use bullet points. Okay. And finally, results. You describe what the product will be. What's going to be the end result to this? What's it going to look like? Now, if you can, as I said with the example of annotated bibliographies, if you can provide an example. However, if the if the assignment involves problem solving, you don't have to provide the correct answer. You could just describe the result. At least give them something that that they know to shoot for. So that's purpose, tasks, and the result. The result is, what's it going to look like? What's it going to be? All right. So once we've taken care of the decisions that we're going to make about content with PTR, next we get into SRR, scan, read, and remember. Now, scan, present the assignment on the page so that the students can preview what's involved with it. This is where you use things like bold-faced headings or and subheadings or italics, so that when the assignment pulls up in the learning management system, or even if you print it out, the student can look at it and they can see, okay, they know what they're coming up against. Read, of course, use simple, clear language so that the students can comprehend what's required to successfully complete the assignment. This is a big part of technical writing, using simple, clear language so that the audience can comprehend what they need to do. And finally, remember. Use both to help students remember what's required. And if they don't remember specifically, that they can go back and find what they're supposed to do. So scan, read, and remember. Why don't you take a look at these samples here? And let's open up the chat if we can. What do you notice about these two? What's different from the one? What's the difference between them? It's the same content. What's the difference between the one on the left and the one on the right? Okay. Yeah, okay, white space, visual stimulation. Bullet points and the yield sign. You know, visuals on the right, they help the reader focus on each section. Image and bullet point help focus. Indeed, indeed. The person who did the one on the right, information is chunked. Yes, exactly. Exactly. It's more uniform, clear, with good use of typeface and bold. But whoever wrote the one that's on the right really must know what he's doing, don't you think? Yeah, one on the left is too many fonts. Surprisingly, that is a problem with a lot of technical communication that I've worked with and that I've read, that I've edited. Mixing up a font, mixing up of sizes, no real consistency. So the one on the right, okay, you got me. I wrote it. So yeah, the one on the left, yeah, it also does not look accessible. Exactly. So yeah. So yeah, this is the one on the right is something that I did for Comdata. Well, former employer and actually my first freelance client. And this was a product called Fleet Team. Now, without going into a lot of details, Fleet Team was a web application that if you had a fleet of vehicles, whether you were a trucking company or whether you were a landscaping company that had pickups and backhoes and other things, Fleet Team was an application that helped you manage your fleet. If you had vehicles out for servicing, you kept track of those, you kept track of all the expenses. I did a round the world package for them. I did a manual. I did an online help system and did a series of tutorial videos. And wouldn't you know it, right when I had the whole package turned in, they decided they didn't want to proceed with releasing Fleet Team. But I got paid for it, though. That was the important part. I got paid as I went through the whole process. Helped us get a new refrigerator and a new couch, I think. And so, but and of course that sometimes happens in the world of technical communication. You create this real nice package, and then suddenly somebody decides they don't want to release the product. But anyway, if you notice though, the way I have this laid out, it is scannable. I use the headings, subheadings, and the white space, as some of you pointed out. You notice the bullet points too. And of course, the little yield sign. So this is, and a special note here, not all LMSs, not all learning management systems allow for much leeway in layout. So you do the best you can with boldface type, with headings that are larger than the base font size. Now, again, anything to grab your students' attention so that they can look through that and say, okay, well, this is what I'm up against. This is where I can find what I need to do. So, and this is an example of from our learning management system at U of L. We use Blackboard. Nothing really exciting as far as layout, but I notice what I do is that I use the boldface text. Why are we doing this? What you are to do? Of course, there's the purpose, the tasks, and the results. And any special notes, I also boldface as well. So this is just a short, almost sketchy example of my attempt to use scan, read, and remember in Blackboard. Of course, if you are really swell with HTML markup, if you know your way around HTML, then you can create something that looks almost like that piece I showed you from Fleet Team. But that requires knowledge of HTML and some coding expertise. Okay, so that's scanning. So reading. Make sure that the layout is, of course, reader friendly. And it goes back to scanning. Are you using bullet points? Do you use properly? Are you using steps properly? And make sure that everything is concise. Everything the student needs is right there and not lost in excess copy. I gave you an example at the very beginning of our webinar about an assignment that was 3 pages long, and really it was hard to find what the students actually needed to do. Create a rough draft. This rough draft needs to be, and they would talk on about rough drafts, not about what they need to do for the rough draft. So everything the student needs is right there and not lost in excess copy. And okay, yeah, and here's another pro tip. Call out terms warning, caution, note, and tip and hint are your friends. Now, this does not apply for all assignments, especially those that just involve writing or just involve some type of analysis. But if you're in engineering or the sciences, these do come in handy. And here's a little guide to them. If you ever have students do experiments with chemicals or with lasers or any type of technology, warning. When you do the assignment, use the word warning if the task may cause bodily harm or death if not done properly. Caution, the task may damage the equipment if not done properly. Note, it deserves special attention or is an exception to something. If you have reading assignments or writing assignments, this is something you would use most likely. And then tip or a hint is point students in a direction for help. But again, only use these two, warning or caution, if for engineering or science experiments where they could hurt themselves or they could damage the equipment if they don't do things properly. So then finally, remember, make sure that when you do this and when you design your layout, that students can recall what the assignment requires or that they can easily find what's required. You don't want them to have to guess, because if they guess, then they're not going to succeed with the assignment. Okay. And again, this goes back to minimizing misunderstanding. Okay. Now here's some additional notes. Make or announce the assignments at the beginning of the unit. In other words, begin with the end in mind. And that comes from Stephen Covey's The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. In fact, that's habit number 2. And this is something that I've done. You make or announce the assignments at the beginning of the unit so that again, it's part of showing the purpose. because the students will know, okay, this is what we're going for in this unit. This is what what we're going to finish with, so that everything that you do will build toward that. Of course, it sets the purpose for the unit, and it connects with the learning goals and student motivation. It gets them interested in what they are going to learn. Once they know that this is going to be our end goal, this is what we're working toward, I'm ready for it. And finally, it answers the question, what's in it for me? Interesting take on assignments. My first job out of grad school was not in teaching. It was in advertising. I was a junior copywriter for an agency here in Louisville. And the man who was the proprietor said that all advertising answers the unasked question. That sounds pretty zen, I know. It answers, what's in it for me? Because again, that shows, okay, well, what again, it answers the question about the purpose. What purpose? Well, what's in it for me? What am I going to learn from this? And of course, that connects directly with their motivation. So if you announce the assignments at the beginning of the unit, it's going to set the purpose. It's going to connect with the learning goals and their motivation, which in turn is going to answer the question for them, what's in it for me? Okay. Some final thoughts. Again, we're going back to Dr. Parker J. Palmer. Teachers possess the power to create the conditions that can help students learn a great deal. And teaching is the act of creating those conditions. And one of the ways we can create those conditions, good assignment design, utilizing purpose, task, result, and scan, read, and remember, doing what tech writers have always done to improve assignment design. And Kathy Davidson's book, The New Education, she cites Seymour Papert, the co-founder of MIT's Media Lab. And a teacher's role, he says, is to provide the conditions for invention. Provide those conditions so that they can create these assignments, or that they can work with these assignments, and that they can create, you can help them create learning from that. So I'm actually finishing this one early. Is what questions do you have? Incidentally, here are some the books that I used and that have inspired me over the last few years.
Yeah, and I'll hop in as a quick reminder for everyone, if you do have any questions, since we do have a little bit of time left, you can feel free to submit those in the Q&A area, or if it's easier, you can put them in the chat. I'm sure we both have that up right now too. So if you have anything that's come up, please feel free to submit those in real quick.
Okay. Okay. You're quite welcome, Lavana. Any additional advice for first-year educators? I'm going to be completely honest. Your good resources, it's hard to find good resources that aren't strictly related to theory and pedagogical theories. A lot of what I have read and that has inspired me comes from outside of education, and that's in the books like Simon Sinek's Start With Why and his Leaders Eat Last. There's a book called Switch about making change. Of course, all these others they deal with education, but they deal with it broadly. They don't deal anything specific as far as pedagogy concerns. The one exception would be Fink's Creating Significant Learning Experiences, and how learning works. That's a lot of the psychology behind learning with that one. So first year educators, expand your learning resource library. That's one thing that I would suggest. Let's see. Somebody says AD of Writing Center. They bring assignments. I'm blowing how poorly professors compose assignments. Thought about doing a workshop for faculty on this topic, but I'm worried that professors think they don't need it. Oh man, that is so true. That is so true, because you got a lot of ego involved. I think. Well, I've been doing this for umpteen years. I know what I'm talking about. So just anybody should be open to learning something new. And if they're not, again, it goes back, I think it goes back to what George Lois says. You know, if you think people are dumb, you're going to spend your life doing dumb work. If you think that you're going to get by just having such poorly written assignments, you know, you're flabbergasted by how, you know, students aren't, you know, they just don't get it. Well, maybe it's not that they don't get it. Maybe it's that you need to help them get it. You need to structure your assignments so that there's absolutely no question about what they need to do. And this is tough. And I hope that this presentation kind of goes far and wide. And if anybody wants to keep in touch with me, I'm going to provide my email address at the end. So the only advice I have is, wow. Tell these professors about this presentation. I don't know. And I think it's something maybe students also need to confront their instructors with. Can you go over this with me to make sure that I'm understanding? I mean, I see this, I'm reading this. Can you make sure that I'm understanding what you want? Or that might be some writing centers can go to the professors and say the same thing. We're trying to help the student here. Can you go over this with me just to make sure that we know what you want so that we can help the students? Catherine, I hope that helps. Because it is a big problem. And when I brought it up to the provost after the evaluations back in the spring, I kind of got, okay, well, thank you for letting us know. And then, you know, I didn't hear a thing back. Can we have those titles, please? Oops. Hang on, I think I might need to go back. Oops. You're talking about these titles, Kate? Who's this? Nefasari, do I have your name? Am I pronouncing your name correctly? Well, thank you, Lavana. Let's see. During pandemic, transition from on-ground to online was challenging not only for students, but also educators. In terms of motivation, how do we educators get motivated to redesign our assignments when we have to work more than 40 hours a week? Wow, this is, it's a challenge. It's tough. Every time I create an assignment, I have to practice what I preach. It is difficult. But I think if you just keep in mind, just purpose, task, and result. And even if it's just for smaller stakes assignments, if you get practice using that, that might help. But yeah, this is something that just something to plow through. I wish there was, wish I could give you a shortcut. But teaching is hard. What we do is very hard and is extremely time consuming if we are planning for our courses. If we're planning as we go, that might be something we need to change, because I'm already thinking about my classes for next semester. I'm already starting to think about, all right, well, what am I going to change up for assignments? Am I going to use the same ones? Am I going to tweak the assignments that are have, or am I going to create new ones? And you start doing that at least 6 months out. So it is a challenge, and I think a lot of pre-planning will have to go into that. So the book that helped me are the titles. These are the ones. The one that, if I have to choose one of them, that is D. Fink's Creating Significant Learning Experiences. And to inspire me was Parker Palmer's The Courage to Teach. So of those two, I think they're the ones that will probably they help me the most, and they might help you as well. They might, especially Parker Palmer. That's a hugely motivating book. All right, let's see. It's tricky because you don't want to step on their toes, but you want to help the students. Oh, that's the big challenge in dealing with professional educators. And I'm using, and I hate being air quote guy, but I'm going to be air quote guy, professional educators. Sometimes they think they know more than anybody else. Okay. Okay. And you're quite welcome. Yeah. Well, thank you, Catherine. Okay. All right. Anybody else? So, Amy, I hope I answered your question. How do you get motivated to redesign the assignment? I'd say I make it as fun as possible, because I try to. I'm thinking of how I can enjoy this so that the students are going to enjoy it as well. Yeah, baby steps. That's what you got to try. Try the smaller assignments first, and again, it might be too late right now in the academic year since we're around midterm times, but maybe starting thinking about what you're going to teach next semester. Start with that. Okay, you're quite welcome. Anybody else?
Looks like we've got one more that just came in, and then we're going to be real close.
Okay.
So I'll let you, if you want to go over that one real quick.
Okay. In case of online classes, important for us to have assignments written out well, since in person we can always talk to give better instructions. Yeah, but sometimes, online you sometimes don't have that. Sometimes you're only a presence in the background. So this technique comes in awfully handy for online assignments, I think. And you're quite welcome for that. So it's yeah, and if it's easier if we're right there in person so that they can ask us these questions. But and for online, just making ourselves available as well, and if they do have questions about those. Right. All right. Well, thank you, Kelsey.
All right. So it does look like now we were right up a little past our time limit. So I want to say a quick thank you to Tim, and thank you to everyone who attended today. Can't host something like this without the attendees. So especially thanks for everyone who hopped in. So first thing real quick, if anyone is interested in looking at demo access to any of the Hawks products, I just posted a link within the chat and you can access that there. Also, if you have any questions about this presentation, about potentially doing one or any other ones we have done, you can direct those to marketing@hawkslearning.com. We will also be emailing the link out to the recording of this webinar once it is available later. So on that note, I hope everyone has a great rest of your day, and thank you one more time to Tim and for all of you for attending.